Hello guys, welcome to Potter Paradox. So in this video, we will see what if Harry traveled back to the Marauders era and punched James Potter. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Fist of Fate. The experimental time turner shattered against the stone floor as Harry dove behind an overturned desk. Spell fire erupted overhead, blue, red, and sickly green flashes illuminating the abandoned Department of Mysteries lab. Potter. We've got 2 more coming in from the East Corridor. Ron's voice crackled through the enchanted communication badge on Harry's collar. Bit busy at the moment. Harry fired back a stunning spell without looking, rewarded by a satisfying thud of a body hitting the ground. 3 years into his Auror career, and Harry still found himself chasing down the last Death Eater holdouts. This latest group had broken into the Ministry seeking experimental time magic, desperate to undo Voldemort's fall. The raid had gone sideways fast when their leader triggered the lab's defensive hexes. Harry rolled to his feet, wand slashing through a complex pattern. A transparent shield enveloped him just as a cutting curse would have taken his head off. The shield held but fractured, shards of magical energy raining down around him. Expelliarmus! Harry shouted, disarming the nearest attacker. As the wand sailed toward him, Harry spotted a golden glow pulsing beneath his boots. The broken time-turner's sand spread in an expanding circle, digits and runes appearing within the swirling grains. Oh shit, was all Harry managed before the world compressed around him. Colors stretched into infinite lines. His body felt simultaneously crushed and pulled apart. Harry tried to scream but had no lungs, no mouth, no body, just consciousness hurtling through a kaleidoscopic tunnel of broken time. Then, with a sound like reality itself tearing, Harry slammed face first into soft grass. Ugh, he groaned, spitting out dirt. His head throbbed, and his limbs felt like jelly. Ron. Anybody? No answer. Just birdsong and distant laughter. Harry pushed himself to his knees, vision swimming. When it cleared, he froze. He knew exactly where he was, the shores of the Black Lake at Hogwarts. But something was wrong. The castle looked different. Smaller details, missing towers that had been added in his time, and present ones that had been destroyed in the Battle of Hogwarts. The laughter grew louder. A crowd had gathered by a large beech tree nearby. Students in Hogwarts robes surrounded someone, on the ground. I'm telling you, Padfoot, he's just asking for it. Aren't you, Snivellis? Harry's blood went cold. That voice. He'd heard it before, in memories, in the Pensieve. His legs moved before his brain caught up. Pushing through the crowd of students, Harry saw them, 4 teenage boys standing over a 5th who was sprawled on the ground, trying to reach a wand just out of grasp. James Potter stood tall, casually twirling his wand between his fingers. Beside him, young Sirius Black lounged with aristocratic indolence, a cruel smile playing across his handsome face. Remus Lupin hung back, looking uncomfortable but not intervening. Peter Pettigrew bounced on his heels with excited anticipation. And on the ground, furious and humiliated, lay teenage Severus Snape. How about we see what Snively wears under his robes, eh? James flicked his wand, and Snape began to rise into the air, dangling by his ankle. A burst of anger unlike anything Harry had felt since the war erupted in his chest. Before he could stop himself, he strode forward, grabbed James Potter by the shoulder, spun him around, and punched his teenage father square in the face. James crumpled, blood spurting from his nose. The spell broke, dropping Snape back to the ground with a thud. The crowd went utterly silent. Harry stood over James, fist still clenched, breathing hard. What the hell? Sirius was the first to recover, stepping between Harry and James. Who the fuck are you? Reality crashed back into Harry's consciousness. What had he done? He'd just punched his teenage father. In front of witnesses. In what was clearly the past. He was so monumentally screwed. Get away from him. Sirius shoved Harry hard, reaching for his wand. Harry's aura training kicked in. He sidestepped, caught Sirius's wrist, and twisted, not enough to hurt, just enough to keep the wand pointed away. I don't want to fight you, Harry said, forcing his voice to remain calm. Funny way of showing it, Sirius snarled, trying to break free. James staggered to his feet, blood streaming down his chin, eyes watering. You broke my nose. You deserved it, Harry replied, releasing Sirius's wrist and stepping back. 4 against 1. Attacking someone who's down. What kind of coward does that make you? The crowd murmured. Harry suddenly realized he'd drawn quite an audience. Students from all houses watched the confrontation with wide eyes. Among them, a flash of dark red hair caught his attention, Lily Evans, his mother, staring at the scene with undisguised shock. Snape had scrambled to his feet, snatched his wand, and now stood with it pointed at both James and Harry, clearly unsure who represented the bigger threat. Who are you anyway? James demanded, dabbing at his nose with his sleeve. You're not a student here. Harry's mind raced. He couldn't give his real name. Harry Evans, he blurted, saying the first name that came to mind. He immediately regretted it when he saw Lily's head snap up at the mention of her surname. Well, Evans, James spat, you've just made a serious mistake. Prongs, Remus finally spoke, stepping forward and gripping James's arm. McGonagall's coming. Sure enough, the deputy headmistress was storming across the lawn, emerald robes billowing behind her. Harry felt a strange mix of relief and dread at the sight of his former professor, decades younger but no less intimidating. What is the meaning of this? McGonagall demanded, surveying the scene, James's bloodied face, Harry's adult presence, the circled students, Snape's disheveled appearance. Explain yourselves immediately. Before anyone could answer, Harry's vision swam. A wave of dizziness hit him hard. The time travel, the punch, the adrenaline crash, it was too much. Darkness edged his vision, and the last thing he heard was McGonagall shouting as his knees buckled and he collapsed onto the grass. Harry woke to the familiar ceiling of the Hogwarts hospital wing. For a disorienting moment, he thought he was 15 again, recovering from some Quidditch injury or encounter with Voldemort. Then the memories rushed back, the raid, the time turner, punching his father, and he groaned. Ah, you're awake. Harry turned his head to find Albus Dumbledore sitting beside his bed, looking far less ancient than Harry remembered but with the same twinkling blue eyes behind half-moon spectacles. Professor, Harry croaked, throat dry. I'm afraid you have me at a disadvantage, Dumbledore replied pleasantly. You know who I am, but I don't believe we've been introduced. Harry tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as his head spun. Dumbledore conjured a glass of water and handed it to him. Tempus, Harry whispered after taking a long drink, wandlessly casting the time-telling charm. Golden numbers floated above his bed, 4:17 p.m., May 16, 1976. Impressive wandless magic, Dumbledore observed, though I'm curious why you needed to confirm the date. Harry met Dumbledore's gaze. Because I was born in 1980. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly, the closest to surprise Harry had ever seen from him. I see. That would explain your rather dramatic entrance and altercation with young Mr. Potter. I need your help, Harry said, keeping his voice low. I'm from 2001. There was an accident with an experimental time turner during an Auror raid. Auror? Dumbledore leaned forward with interest. Yes, Harry paused. How much should he reveal? Even to Dumbledore, telling the complete truth could be catastrophic. I can't tell you everything. Temporal law, of course, Dumbledore nodded. Though I must admit, time travel beyond a few hours is theoretically impossible with any time turner I'm familiar with. It was experimental. Department of Mysteries stuff. Harry ran a hand through his hair, exposing his scar momentarily. Dumbledore's eyes flicked to his forehead, but he made no comment. "And your name, young man?" Another pause. "Harry Evans," he said, committing to the lie. "Indeed." Dumbledore's tone made it clear he didn't believe this but wouldn't press the issue. "Well, Mr. Evans, you present quite the conundrum. If what you say is true, we must return you to your proper time while minimizing any disturbances to the timeline. Like punching students?" Harry winced. "Precisely like that," Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Though Professor McGonagall informs me that Mr. Potter may have been engaged in behavior worthy of intervention. Not," he added with gentle reproof, "that physical violence is ever the answer." Harry sighed. "I know. I just reacted. The question remains, what to do with you while we research a solution. You cannot simply wander the castle as an adult stranger." "I could help teach," Harry suggested. "Defense against the dark arts. I ran a secret defense club in my 5th year, and I've had aura training." Dumbledore stroked his beard. "An interesting proposition. Our current professor, Galatea Merithot, has been mentioning retirement. A teaching assistant might be welcome." A stern voice interrupted their conversation. "Headmaster, our guest is awake, I see." McGonagall approached, looking younger but no less formidable. Harry felt like a schoolboy again under her gaze. "Indeed, Minerva. Mr. Evans here has had quite the journey. He will be staying with us for a time as Professor Merithot's assistant." McGonagall's eyebrows shot up. "Without references or credentials?" "I've verified his qualifications," Dumbledore said smoothly. "Unusual circumstances call for unusual arrangements." "He struck a student," McGonagall reminded him. "And I will ensure appropriate consequences," Dumbledore assured her. "Perhaps assisting Mr. Filch with some caretaking duties in addition to his teaching responsibilities." Harry suppressed a groan. Even as an adult, he was getting detention. "Very well," McGonagall sniffed. "But I'll be watching him closely, Albus." "I wouldn't expect anything less, Minerva." After McGonagall left, Harry turned back to Dumbledore. "Sir, about my identity. I can't reveal who I really am, but people might notice certain similarities to current students. A glamour charm, perhaps?" Dumbledore suggested. Harry shook his head. "Too easy to detect or dispel. Maybe just some cosmetic changes. Different hair, hide my scar. A wise precaution. We shall provide you with suitable quarters near the defense classroom. I suggest you keep interactions with students minimal." Dumbledore's eyes held a warning. "Particularly those you may have recognized." "Yes, sir. And, about getting home, I will consult with certain experts discreetly," Dumbledore promised. "Though I must warn you, true time travel of this magnitude is unprecedented. It may take time to find a solution." Harry nodded, the weight of his situation settling onto him. He was stuck in 1976, teaching alongside people who would become his professors, walking hallways with students who would shape his life, his parents, his godfather, the man who would betray them all. "Try to rest, Mr. Evans," Dumbledore said, rising from his chair. "Madame Pomfrey insists you stay overnight for observation. Tomorrow, we'll establish your new identity properly." After Dumbledore left, Harry stared at the ceiling, mind racing. What if he couldn't get back? What if he'd already changed things irrevocably by punching his father? Could he somehow prevent the tragedies he knew were coming? Should he even try? Sleep came eventually, fitful and filled with dreams where he chased his teenage parents down ever-changing Hogwarts corridors, trying to warn them of something he couldn't quite remember. "You will refer to me as Professor Evans or Sir," Harry told the whispering sixth-year Gryffindor and Slytherin class 3 days later. "Professor Merithot has graciously allowed me to take today's practical lesson." He stood in the defense classroom, hair now brown instead of black, scar hidden under carefully applied cosmetics, wearing professor's robes Dumbledore had provided. His eyes he'd left alone, changing their distinctive green felt too much like erasing his mother's legacy. Near the back of the classroom, the Marauders sat clustered together. James Potter, nose fully healed but pride still wounded, glared daggers at Harry. Beside him, Sirius looked equally hostile while Remus seemed cautiously curious. Peter Pettigrew hunched in his seat, occasionally whispering to James. Across the room, Severus Snape sat with a cluster of Slytherins, including a blonde boy Harry recognized with a shock as his mother's former friend, a young Evan Rosier, and a girl who had to be a black from her features, probably Narcissa. Lily Evans sat near the front with Mary MacDonald and Alice Fortescue, who, Harry realized with a start, would become Neville's mother. "Today we're practicing nonverbal shield charms," Harry announced, pushing aside his emotional turmoil. "Partner up, one person will cast minor jinxes verbally, the other will shield nonverbally. Then switch." The students shuffled into pairs. Harry noticed James deliberately positioning himself to partner with Lily, who rolled her eyes and turned pointedly to Alice. "Tough luck, Prongs," Sirius snickered, pairing with James instead. Harry walked between the practicing students, correcting wand grips and offering advice. Most students struggled with nonverbal casting, something Harry had mastered out of necessity during the war. "You're flicking too aggressively," Harry told a frustrated Slytherin. Nonverbal spells require more mental focus, less physical movement. As he approached Snape, Harry felt a knot form in his stomach. The boy was successfully shielding against Rosier's increasingly powerful jinxes, his face a mask of concentration. "Good form, Mr. Snape," Harry said neutrally. "Try visualizing the shield as a solid surface." Snape's dark eyes flicked to Harry's face, suspicious but hungry for approval. "I am." "Then visualize it better," Harry replied with a half-smile. "Magic responds to intent and clarity." Snape's next shield was noticeably stronger, deflecting Rosier's stinging hex completely. "Excellent," Harry nodded, moving on to where Lily was effortlessly shielding against Alice's jinxes. "You've done this before," he observed. Lily looked up, green eyes, his eyes, meeting his. "I practice ahead," she said simply. 5 points to Gryffindor for preparation, Harry said, voice catching slightly. When he reached James and Sirius, he found them casting increasingly elaborate jinxes rather than practicing shields. "Gentlemen," Harry said sharply, the assignment was clear. "Just warming up, Professor," James replied with faux innocence. "Then perhaps you're ready for a demonstration?" Harry suggested. "Mr. Potter, you'll cast against me." The class fell silent as James stepped forward, twirling his wand confidently. "Your best jinx, Potter." "Verbal," Harry instructed, setting his wand on the desk behind him. Murmurs spread through the classroom. James looked thrown off. "You're not using your wand?" he asked incredulously. "I don't need it for a simple shield charm against a 6th year," Harry replied, internally wincing at how arrogant that sounded. But he needed to establish authority with the Marauders, and this was the language they understood. James's eyes narrowed. "Impedimenta," he shouted, the jinx shooting toward Harry with impressive speed. Harry didn't move, didn't speak. He simply raised his right hand slightly, focusing his intent. The jinx collided with an invisible barrier inches from his chest and dissipated in a shower of sparks. The class gasped. Wandless, nonverbal shielding was beyond Newt level. "Again," Harry said calmly. James's jaw tightened. "Flipendo," he cried, putting more force behind the knockback jinx. Again, Harry blocked it effortlessly. "You're holding back," Harry observed. "I did break your nose. Surely you can do better." A flash of anger crossed James's face. "Furnunculus," he shouted, a much nastier hex speeding toward Harry. Harry not only blocked it but redirected it into the ceiling, where it burst in a shower of harmless light. "Better," Harry nodded. "But shields aren't just for standing still. Movement, he sidestepped as James sent another jinx. Timing, he blocked a second spell at the last possible moment. And counterattacks are equally important. With a flick of his fingers, Harry sent a mild tickling charm at James, who was too surprised to shield. The boy doubled over, laughing uncontrollably. "Finite," Harry said, ending the charm after a few seconds. 5 points from Gryffindor for deviating from the assignment, Mr. Potter. 5 points to Gryffindor for your jinx work, which is admittedly impressive. James straightened, looking at Harry with a new expression, not quite respect, but reassessment. "Now," Harry addressed the class, "pair up again. This time, I want to see proper non-verbal shielding from everyone." The lesson continued more smoothly after that. Even the Marauders focused on the assignment, though Harry caught them whispering when they thought he wasn't looking. As class ended, Harry called out, "Mr. Potter, Mr. Black, a moment please." The two boys approached his desk warily as the other students filed out. Remus hesitated at the door until Sirius waved him on. "Yes, Professor?" James asked with exaggerated politeness. Harry took a deep breath. "I want to apologize for striking you, Mr. Potter. Regardless of what I witnessed, physical violence was inappropriate." James blinked, clearly not expecting an apology. That said, Harry continued, "4-on-1 magical bullying is equally inappropriate and beneath wizards of your talent." "We were just having a bit of fun," Sirius said defensively. "Was Mr. Snape having fun?" Harry asked quietly. Neither boy answered. "I've spoken with Professor McGonagall," Harry continued. "Rather than traditional detention, she's agreed to my alternative suggestion. You'll both assist me with dueling club preparations this term." "Dueling club?" James perked up. "There's no dueling club at Hogwarts." "There is now," Harry replied. "Professor Dumbledore has approved a trial run, supervised by myself and Professor Flitwick. I expect you both to demonstrate proper dueling etiquette and sportsmanship." Sirius narrowed his eyes. "This is still punishment, isn't it? Think of it as an opportunity to channel your considerable talents more productively," Harry suggested. "You're both exceptional wizards. Imagine what you could accomplish if you used that ability to lift others up rather than tear them down." James and Sirius exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "First meeting is Friday evening," Harry said, dismissing them. "Don't be late." After they left, Harry sank into his chair, emotionally drained. Facing the teenage versions of his father and godfather, teaching them, disciplining them, was surreal and painful. James was so much like the stories and so unlike them at the same time. The arrogance Snape had always accused him of was undeniably there, but so was the charm and talent everyone else remembered. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Harry looked up to find Lily Evans standing in the doorway. "Miss Evans?" His heart hammered in his chest. His mother, alive, young, real. "Professor, I wanted to ask about advanced shield variations," she said. "I've read about the Protego Duo and Protego Tot Alum, but the library resources are limited." "Of course," Harry gestured to a chair. "Though I'm curious why a 6th year needs advanced shielding techniques." Lily sat, tucking her dark red hair behind her ear. "The world isn't exactly safe right now, is it? With the disappearances, the attacks on Muggles and Muggleborns." Harry nodded grimly. Voldemort's first rise to power was well underway by 1976. "Being prepared isn't paranoia," he agreed. "It's prudence." "Exactly." Lily leaned forward enthusiastically. "Most professors act like we should focus only on exams, but there's a war brewing out there." "And you want to protect your family," Harry guessed, thinking of his Muggle grandparents he'd never met. Lily's eyes widened slightly. "How did you know I'm Muggleborn?" Harry mentally kicked himself. "Professor McGonagall mentioned some of her top students. Your name came up." Lily accepted this with a nod. "So about those shield variations?" Harry spent the next 20 minutes explaining advanced shielding techniques, carefully gauging how much to share. Lily was brilliant, quickly grasping concepts that had taken Harry months to master. "You'd make an excellent Auror," he told her as their impromptu lesson ended. She smiled, gathering her books. "I've considered it. Or maybe healing. There are so many paths." Harry's chest ached, knowing her path would be cut tragically short. "Whatever you choose, you'll excel at it." As she reached the door, Lily paused. "Professor? That day by the lake, thank you. Not for hitting Potter," she added quickly, "but for stepping in. Most people just watch." "Sometimes standing by is the same as standing with the bullies," Harry replied quietly. Lily studied him with those familiar green eyes. "You're not what I expected. When Dumbledore introduced you at breakfast, I thought you'd be like the other professors, distant, academic." "I've been where you students are," Harry said truthfully. "Caught between childhood and adulthood while the world goes mad around you. It's not easy." "No," she agreed softly, "it's not." She hesitated, then asked, "Are you related to me, sir?" "Only, Evans isn't a common wizarding name, and your eyes." Harry's pulse quickened. "Distant relation, perhaps," he said carefully. "Evans is more common in the Muggle world." She nodded, not entirely convinced. "Well, thank you for the lesson, Professor Evans." After she left, Harry exhaled slowly. He needed to be more careful. Time travel stories always warned about changing the past, but they never mentioned how hard it would be to simply observe, to see people you loved, knowing their fates, and do nothing. The first meeting of the dueling club drew nearly 40 students from all houses, gathered in the great hall with its tables pushed aside. Flitwick stood beside Harry on a raised platform, practically bouncing with excitement. "Delighted to collaborate, Professor Evans," the tiny charms master squeaked. "Been years since Hogwarts had a proper dueling club." "Thank you for co-sponsoring, Professor," Harry replied warmly. Working with the younger Flitwick, his mustache still dark rather than white, was one of the few uncomplicated pleasures of his situation. As promised, James and Sirius arrived early to help set up dueling lanes marked with glowing boundaries on the floor. They worked efficiently despite occasional grumbling. "Welcome, students," Flitwick called as the clock struck 7. "Professor Evans and I are delighted to introduce Hogwarts' new dueling club." Harry stepped forward. "Dueling isn't about hurting your opponent, it's about skill, control, and respect. We'll begin with basic etiquette and safety rules." He demonstrated the formal bow with Flitwick, explained boundary restrictions, and covered permitted spell categories. "Now, a demonstration," Harry announced. "Professor Flitwick is a former dueling champion. I've asked him to show you what proper competitive dueling looks like." Flitwick beamed, taking position at one end of the platform. Harry stood at the other, wand at the ready. "Standard competition rules," Flitwick declared. "Begin on 3. 1, 2, 3. What followed was a dazzling display. Flitwick's size belied his speed and precision, he sent chains of spells with barely a pause between them. Harry, drawing on his Auror training and battle experience, matched the professor's spell for spell. Students gasped as multicolored jets of light crisscrossed the platform, shields flared and faded, and both duelists danced through complex footwork. Neither man spoke a single incantation aloud, their non-verbal casting adding to the spectacle. After 2 minutes of increasingly elaborate exchanges, Harry spotted an opening in Flitwick's defense and sent a precisely timed Expelliarmus. The tiny professor's wand flew from his grip, but not before his own impediment Jinx caught Harry's legs, freezing him mid-motion. Both duelists were technically disabled, a draw. The students erupted in applause. "Magnificent, Professor Evans." Flitwick recovered his wand with a summoning charm. That final disarming charm was perfectly executed. "Your Jinx caught me simultaneously," Harry grinned, cancelling the Jinx on his legs. In competition, they'd likely award points to both sides. They bowed to each other again, then turned to the excited students. Now, Harry said, we'll divide you into pairs for basic practice. Remember, bow first, basic spells only, stop immediately when someone's disarmed. As students paired off, Harry noticed James approaching Lily, who once again turned away. This time, however, she hesitated, glancing back at James with an expression Harry couldn't quite read. Yes, Potter, she finally asked. Partners? James suggested, running a hand through his perpetually messy hair. For dueling, he added quickly. Lily considered him for a long moment. No funny business. No showing off. Just dueling, James promised. Fine, Lily sighed. But I won't go easy on you. I'd be disappointed if you did, James grinned. Harry watched them take positions, an ache in his chest. His parents, not yet in love, barely even friends, standing across from each other with wands raised. In their formal dueling stance, Harry could see echoes of himself. Throughout the session, Harry and Flitwick circulated, correcting stances and offering advice. Most students stuck to simple spells, disarming charms, impediment jinxes, shield charms. A few more advanced students, including the Marauders, Lily, and Snape, incorporated more creative tactics. Snape particularly impressed Harry with his precision and inventiveness, using subtle jinxes in unexpected combinations against a seventh-year Slytherin. Whatever else Snape might become, his skill was undeniable. Near the end of the session, Harry called for volunteers for a demonstration duel. Multiple hands shot up immediately. Mr. Lupin, Harry selected, and Miss Evans. Remus looked surprised but took his position on the platform confidently. Lily faced him with determined focus. Standard rules, Harry reminded them. Begin on 3. 1, 2, 3. Lily struck first with a quick Expelliarmus that Remus barely blocked. He countered with a tickling charm that she sidestepped, returning fire with a clever Obscuro spell that temporarily blindfolded its target. Remus, blindfolded but thinking quickly, cast a wide area finite that removed the blindfold, then immediately had to shield against Lily's follow-up stunning spell. The duel continued for nearly a minute, both students displaying excellent technique. Finally, Lily feinted with a harmless light spell, causing Remus to shield high while she targeted his feet with a tripping jinx. As he stumbled, she disarmed him cleanly. Excellent! Harry applauded as the other students cheered. 10 points to Gryffindor for both of you. Miss Evans, your strategy was impeccable. Mr. Lupin, your shields were textbook perfect. James whooped loudly for both his friend and his crush, earning an eye roll but also a small smile from Lily. As the session ended and students filed out, Harry overheard snippets of excited conversation. Did you see Professor Evans against Flitwick? Nonverbal casting is definitely showing up more on our exams. Evans absolutely demolished Lupin. Next meeting is Tuesday, right? I'm definitely coming back. Harry felt a genuine smile form. Teaching defense during his 5th year with Dumbledore's army had been one of his most rewarding experiences at Hogwarts. Doing it again, with his parents and their friends as his students, was bittersweet but deeply satisfying. As he helped Flitwick restore the Great Hall, movement at the entrance caught his eye. Severus Snape lingered by the doorway, seemingly debating whether to approach. Harry nodded to him encouragingly. After a moment's hesitation, Snape walked over. Professor, he said stiffly, I have a question about counterjinxes. Of course, Mr. Snape, Harry replied, keeping his tone neutral despite the emotional whirlwind of facing his namesake's teenage tormentor, a boy who would one day both save and endanger Harry's life repeatedly. The standard counter to the impediment jinx requires precise wand movement, Snape began, demonstrating the motion. But I've developed a variation that's faster, though less reliable. He showed a modified wand movement, clever and innovative, Harry had to admit. Interesting approach, Harry nodded. The standard counter prioritizes reliability over speed. Your variation does the opposite. Both have their place. Which would you use? Snape asked directly. Harry considered. In a classroom duel? The standard. In a real fight? Sometimes speed matters more than certainty. Snape's eyes gleamed with interest. You speak as if you've been in real fights. Theory only goes so far, Harry replied carefully. Practical experience matters. The defense position has been different professors every year, Snape observed. Where did you study? Here and there, Harry evaded. You have an analytical mind, Mr. Snape. That's valuable in defensive magic. Most fights are won or lost in the moments of assessment before spells are cast. Snape absorbed this, then asked, will you be teaching countercurse development in class? Perhaps for Newt students, Harry said. Though I sense you're already studying independently. Books only explain so much, Snape replied, unconsciously echoing Harry's earlier statement. Tuesday afternoons, Harry decided. I'll be offering advanced defense sessions for any 6th and 7th years interested in curse development and countermeasures. You'd be welcome to attend. Snape's expression remained guarded, but Harry caught the flash of eagerness in his eyes. I'll consider it. After Snape left, Flitwick approached Harry. Quite popular with the students already, Professor Evans. Your practical approach is refreshing. Thank you, Professor Flitwick, Harry replied. I believe in preparation. The world outside Hogwarts isn't always kind. Indeed, Flitwick's normally cheerful face grew serious. The reports grow more troubling each day. This dark wizard calling himself Voldemort. Harry suppressed a reaction to the name. All the more reason to ensure students can defend themselves. Quite right, Flitwick agreed. Though I hope they never need such skills outside of friendly competition. Harry nodded, knowing the terrible truth, that many of these students would fight, and some would die, in the war already beginning around them. James and Lily had barely 4 years left. Sirius would spend 12 years in Azkaban. Remus would lose everything. And Peter. Are you well, Professor Evans? Flitwick asked, concerned. You've gone rather pale. Just tired, Harry managed a smile. First week teaching and all. Rest then. Youth recovers quickly, but even you need sleep. As Harry walked back to his quarters, his mind spun with possibilities and consequences. He'd started a dueling club, something that hadn't existed in his original timeline. He was offering advanced defense lessons, potentially changing students' skill levels and knowledge bases. He'd punched his father and was now actively trying to guide him toward better behavior. How much could he change without destroying his own future? Should he try to save his parents? Stop Peter's betrayal? Warn Dumbledore about Horcruxes decades early? And more immediately, how could he face these people day after day, knowing their fates, without breaking apart? Harry entered his small but comfortable quarters near the defense classroom and collapsed into an armchair, emotionally exhausted. On the desk lay several books Dumbledore had provided on theoretical time travel, none offering much practical help for his situation. A soft knock at his door interrupted his brooding. Enter, he called, sitting up straighter. The door opened to reveal McGonagall. Professor Evans, a moment of your time. Of course, Professor McGonagall, Harry gestured to the chair opposite his. Please, sit. She sat primly, studying him with those penetrating eyes that had always seemed to see right through him. I observed your dueling club this evening. I hope it met with your approval, Harry said carefully. The students were engaged and learning proper technique, she acknowledged. But I'm curious about your interest in Potter and Black. Harry kept his expression neutral. They're talented students who need direction. They're also the students you had an altercation with your first day here, she pointed out. Some might see your special attention as either favoritism or continued punishment. It's neither, Harry said firmly. They have exceptional abilities they're currently using for pranks and bullying. I'm trying to redirect that energy. McGonagall didn't seem entirely convinced. And your interest in Miss Evans? I noticed you worked with her extensively today. Harry's stomach tightened. She's a gifted student with questions beyond the standard curriculum. Should I not encourage that? Of course you should, McGonagall replied. I merely find it interesting that you've taken such specific interest in these particular students in such a short time. Her shrewd gaze made Harry feel like a student again, caught out of bounds after curfew. She suspected something, not the whole truth perhaps, but enough to make her cautious. Professor Dumbledore has vouched for you, she continued when Harry didn't respond. That carries significant weight. However, she leaned forward slightly. If your presence here endangers my students in any way, you will answer to me. Is that clear? Perfectly, Harry replied, meeting her gaze steadily. I want to protect these students, Professor. More than you know. Something in his tone must have convinced her, because her expression softened marginally. Dumbledore believes you have secrets for good reason. I won't pry further, for now. But be careful, Professor Evans. Hogwarts is watching. After she left, Harry rubbed his temples, feeling the beginning of a headache. McGonagall was right to be suspicious. He was an unknown element, suddenly appearing and taking unusual interest in specific students. In her position, he'd be equally wary. How long could he maintain this precarious balance? How long would he even be here? And most importantly, what was he meant to do with this unexpected opportunity to know his parents before they became his parents? Questions without answers plagued him as he prepared for bed. Tomorrow would bring another day of navigating this impossible situation, teaching students who would shape his life, hiding his true identity, and somehow trying not to destroy the timeline that led to his birth. As sleep claimed him, Harry's last thought was of James and Lily, young and alive and full of possibility, standing across from each other in dueling stance, not yet in love, but already showing the courage and skill that would one day help defeat the darkest wizard of their age. The three broomsticks hummed with weekend activity. Harry sat alone in a corner booth, nursing a butterbeer while grading essays. 3 weeks into his unexpected teaching position, he'd established a routine of spending Saturday afternoons in Hogsmeade, partly to give himself space from the castle's constant reminders, partly to keep an eye on students during their village weekends. Mind if I join you? Harry looked up to find Remus Lupin standing by his table, a hesitant smile on his scarless young face. Mr. Lupin, Harry gestured to the empty seat across from him. Please. Remus sat, placing his own butterbeer on the table. Grading our essays on nonverbal defensive theory. Indeed, Harry tapped the parchment before him. Yours was particularly insightful regarding the psychological barriers to nonverbal casting. Remus's cheeks colored slightly at the praise. Thank you, sir. I find the mind-magic connection fascinating. Harry studied the boy who would become one of his most important teachers, and briefly, a friend. At 16, Remus already showed the thoughtfulness that would define him as an adult, though without the deep weariness years of prejudice would eventually etch into his features. Your practical work has been equally impressive, Harry noted. You have a natural talent for defense. Remus glanced around before lowering his voice. Can I ask you something, Professor? Of course. During our dueling sessions, you never schedule me for the days around the full moon. Harry's heart skipped. He'd been careful to accommodate Remus's lycanthropy without drawing attention to it, but clearly not careful enough. You notice patterns, Harry observed neutrally. It's either remarkable consideration, Remus continued, or remarkable knowledge you shouldn't possess. Harry set down his quill. What exactly are you asking, Mr. Lupin? Remus met his gaze steadily. Do you know what I am? I know you're an exceptional student with a medical condition that requires accommodation, Harry replied carefully. A medical condition. Remus's smile held no humor. That's a polite way of putting it. Harry leaned forward slightly. Mr. Lupin, whatever challenges you face, they don't define your worth or potential. Remus's expression softened with surprise. Most wizards don't share that view. I'm not most wizards, Harry said simply. Before Remus could respond, the pub door banged open, and Sirius strode in with James and Peter trailing behind. Spotting Remus, they made their way over. Moony. There you are, Sirius stopped short upon seeing Harry. Oh. Hello, Professor. Mr. Black, Harry nodded. Mr. Potter, Mr. Pettigrew. Looking at Peter still felt like a punch to the gut. The small, watery-eyed boy showed little outward sign of the betrayal he would one day commit. Harry forced himself to nod politely. Don't let me interrupt your Hogsmeade visit, Harry gathered his papers. I was just finishing up. Actually, James said, sliding into the booth beside Remus, we wanted to ask about the dueling club championship you mentioned. Harry paused. He'd announced plans for an end-of-term dueling competition, partly to motivate students and partly to prepare them for the dangers he knew awaited outside Hogwarts. What about it? He asked. The house-based teams, Sirius clarified, taking the remaining seat. Peter remained standing, shifting awkwardly from foot to foot. We think they should be mixed. Mixed? Harry raised an eyebrow. Inter-house, James explained. The way you've set it up, it's Gryffindor versus Slytherin versus Hufflepuff versus Ravenclaw. That just reinforces existing rivalries. Harry hadn't expected this perspective from James, who'd always seemed to embrace the Gryffindor-Slytherin rivalry in Snape's memories. Go on, he encouraged. If teams had members from different houses, James continued, we'd learn different approaches. Ravenclaws strategize differently than Gryffindors. Hufflepuffs have different strengths than Slytherins. Plus, Sirius added, it's more like real life, isn't it? Outside school, you don't fight alongside only people from your house. Harry couldn't hide his surprise. That's an excellent point. What prompted this thinking? The Marauders exchanged glances. That first day, James finally said, when you stopped us by the lake. You said something about using our talents to lift others up instead of putting them down. We've been thinking about it, Remus added. About what you've been trying to teach us. Harry felt a lump form in his throat. Were his efforts actually making a difference? I'll consider revising the tournament structure, he said once he'd composed himself. It's a thoughtful suggestion. As the boys grinned at each other, the pub door opened again. Lily entered with Mary McDonald and Alice Fortescue, followed by Severus Snape and another Slytherin boy Harry didn't recognize. Tension immediately rippled through the Marauders. James's eyes fixed on Lily, then narrowed as she exchanged a brief greeting with Snape before the Slytherins moved to a table across the room. She's still talking to him, James muttered. They've been friends since before Hogwarts, Remus reminded him quietly. He's up to his eyes in dark arts, Sirius retorted. Everyone knows he's in Mulciber and Avery's crowd now. Harry observed the dynamic with interest. This seemed to be the period when Lily and Snape's friendship was fraying but not yet broken. People make choices, Harry said carefully. Sometimes they make wrong ones before finding the right path. Some paths can't be come back from, Sirius said darkly, and Harry wondered if he was thinking of his own family. You'd be surprised, Harry replied, thinking of Snape's ultimate sacrifice and Regulus Black's defiance of Voldemort. Redemption comes in many forms. The conversation might have continued, but a commotion at the bar interrupted them. A tall wizard with long platinum blonde hair was arguing with Madame Rosmerta, his voice rising imperiously. Lucius Malfoy, Sirius hissed. What's that prat doing back here? Harry's spine stiffened. Lucius Malfoy, recently graduated and already sporting the silver-headed cane that would one day conceal his wand. Based on what Harry knew of the timeline, Lucius would be newly married to Narcissa Black and already in Voldemort's inner circle. Ministry business, most likely, James whispered. Dad says he's always at the minister's office these days. Harry watched as Lucius finished his conversation with Rosmerta and turned, surveying the pub with cold grey eyes. His gaze lingered on the Slytherin table, where Snape and his companion straightened slightly. Then Lucius's eyes met Harry's, and a flicker of curiosity crossed his aristocratic features. After a moment's consideration, he approached their table. "Well, well," Lucius drawled. "The new defense professor I've heard about. Evans, isn't it?" "Mr. Malfoy," Harry acknowledged, keeping his voice level despite the surge of antipathy. "What brings a ministry official to Hogsmeade?" Lucius raised an eyebrow at Harry's knowledge of his position. "Various matters requiring attention. The minister values eyes and ears in all corners of our community." "I'm sure he does," Harry replied coolly. Lucius studied him with calculated interest. "Curious timing, your arrival at Hogwarts. Just as concerns about certain educational standards are being raised at the ministry." "Educational standards?" Harry echoed. "Indeed," Lucius smiled thinly. "Some feel Hogwarts has become too progressive in its teaching. Too willing to dilute traditional wizarding values to accommodate those less familiar with our ways." The implication was clear: Lucius was already working to advance anti-Muggleborn policies. "I find Hogwarts maintains an excellent balance," Harry replied. "Traditional magical education while preparing all students for the modern wizarding world." "All students," Lucius repeated softly. "Yes, that's precisely the issue some are concerned about." Before Harry could respond, Sirius cut in. "Shouldn't you be running along to kiss the hem of someone's robes, Malfoy? I hear there's a new fashion in groveling this season." Lucius's face hardened. "Black. Still disappointing your noble family at every turn, I see. Your cousin Narcissa sends her regrets that you continue to waste your potential with unworthy associations." "Tell my dear cousin I'm devastated by her disapproval," Sirius replied with mock anguish. "How will I ever sleep at night?" "Careful, boy," Lucius warned softly. "Family ties only protect you so far." Harry stood, placing himself subtly between Lucius and the students. "Was there something specific you needed, Mr. Malfoy?" "These young men were discussing their schoolwork with me." "Merely making introductions," Lucius said smoothly. "As a ministry liaison, I like to know who's shaping young minds these days." "Well, now you know," Harry replied. "If there's nothing else." Lucius's smile didn't reach his eyes. "For now." He nodded curtly and moved toward the Slytherin table, where Snape and his companion greeted him with deferential nods. Once he was out of earshot, James let out a low whistle. That was tense. "You all right, Padfoot?" Sirius shrugged, but Harry caught the tightness around his eyes. "Nothing I haven't heard before." Harry watched Lucius speaking quietly to the Slytherins, occasionally glancing back in their direction. This was concerning. If Lucius reported Harry's presence to Voldemort as suspicious, it could complicate everything. "I think it's time you boys enjoyed the rest of your Hogsmeade visit," Harry suggested, gathering his papers. "And perhaps away from the Three Broomsticks." "Are you worried about Malfoy?" Remus asked perceptively. "Let's just say I prefer not to have ministry attention on my teaching methods," Harry replied. "Or on my students." The boys seemed to understand the underlying warning and finished their butterbeers quickly. As they stood to leave, James hesitated. "Professor," he said quietly, "you know they're recruiting, don't you? Malfoy and his lot. They approach Slytherins with the right connections. Offer them power, recognition." Harry nodded grimly. "I know, Mr. Potter. Snape's on their list," Sirius added. "Has been since 5th year." "People make choices," Harry repeated his earlier statement. "Sometimes all they need is someone showing them there's another way." As the Marauders left, Harry lingered, keeping an eye on Lucius's conversation with the Slytherin students. Whatever was being discussed, Snape looked intensely focused. The other boy, who Harry now suspected might be Evan Rosier, seemed eager, while Snape maintained a more reserved expression. When Lily's laughter rang out from another corner of the pub, Harry saw Snape's head turn slightly toward the sound before refocusing on Lucius. That tiny movement gave Harry a flicker of hope. The boy wasn't yet lost to darkness, not completely. Harry finished his butterbeer and stood to leave, catching Lucius watching him again. The Malfoy patriarch raised his glass slightly in mock salute, his eyes cold and calculating. Harry nodded curtly and exited the pub, his mind racing. The war was further along than he'd realized. Voldemort was already recruiting at Hogwarts, using former students like Lucius as intermediaries. Harry's students, including his parents and their friends, were being drawn into a conflict that would ultimately claim many of their lives. And Harry, with his knowledge of the future, stood at a crossroads. How much could he intervene without destroying the timeline that led to Voldemort's eventual defeat? How much should he? As he walked back toward Hogwarts through the crisp autumn air, Harry made a decision. He couldn't stand by and watch history repeat itself, not entirely. He would be careful, strategic, but he would act. Starting with a certain Slytherin boy who still looked at a red-haired Gryffindor girl when he thought no one was watching. Again, Harry instructed, circling the small group of students in the empty classroom. Shield, counter, strike, fluid motion, no hesitation. 6 students, 3 sixth years and 3 seventh years, moved through the advanced defensive sequence Harry had designed. Tuesday afternoon special sessions had grown steadily over the past month, attracting the most dedicated defense students regardless of house. Severus Snape moved with particular precision, his wand work economical and effective. Beside him, Lily Evans matched his pace, her style more creative but equally lethal. The tension between them was palpable but set aside in favor of learning. Excellent form, Miss Evans, Harry praised. Mr. Snape, your counter could be faster if you adjust your wrist angle slightly. Snape nodded, immediately incorporating the correction. His eagerness to improve was evident, though he tried to hide it behind a mask of indifference. That's enough drill work, Harry decided after another repetition. Let's move to practical application. Pair up for controlled sparring. The students divided naturally, Ravenclaw 7th years Edgar Bones and Emmeline Vance together, Gryffindor 7th year Frank Longbottom with Ravenclaw 6th year Dirk Cresswell, leaving Snape and Lily as partners. Harry watched each pair closely, but paid special attention to Snape and Lily. Their dynamic fascinated him, once close friends now growing apart, yet still showing remarkable magical synchronicity. They anticipated each other's moves, creating a duel that resembled a complex dance more than combat. Hold, Harry called after several minutes. Excellent work, all of you. Mr. Bones, your shield variations are particularly creative. Miss Vance, outstanding nonverbal casting. The students gathered around as Harry continued his feedback. Mr. Longbottom, your offensive spells show remarkable power, though control still needs work. Mr. Cresswell, quick thinking with that modified impediment jinx. Finally, he turned to Snape and Lily. Miss Evans, Mr. Snape, your coordination is exceptional. You clearly understand each other's magical styles intimately. Lily flushed slightly while Snape's expression remained neutral, though Harry caught the slight tension in his jaw. For next week, Harry continued, I'd like each of you to develop a custom defensive sequence incorporating at least one spell of your own modification. We'll analyze effectiveness and practical applications. As the students gathered their belongings, Harry added, Mr. Snape, a moment please. Lily glanced between them before joining the others filing out. Snape remained, expression guarded. Your spell development shows remarkable innovation, Harry began once they were alone. Particularly your modifications to standard jinxes and counter curses. Snape's eyes narrowed slightly, suspicious of praise. Thank you, Professor. I'm curious about your interest in defense, Harry continued carefully. Your talent suggests deeper study than most students pursue. The standard curriculum is limited, Snape replied. Harry nodded, leaning against his desk. And your other studies? I understand you have quite a reputation in potions as well. Professor Slughorn finds my work acceptable, Snape said with false modesty. More than acceptable, from what I hear. Harry paused, then ventured on to dangerous ground. I've also heard you have interests in more specialized branches of magic. Snape stiffened almost imperceptibly. I study broadly. Including dark arts? Harry asked directly. Snape's eyes flashed. Is that an accusation, Professor? An observation, Harry replied calmly. And perhaps a concern. Concern? Snape's voice dripped with sudden bitterness. From a professor who's been here less than 2 months. How touching. I recognize a brilliant mind when I see one, Mr. Snape, Harry said quietly. I also recognize the allure certain paths can hold when one feels unappreciated. Something flickered across Snape's face, surprise, perhaps, at being seen so clearly. You know nothing about me, he said, but with less conviction. I know you're at a crossroads, Harry replied. I know certain people are showing interest in your talents, people like Lucius Malfoy, who I saw speaking with you in Hogsmeade. Snape's expression closed immediately. My associations are my business. Of course, Harry nodded. Just as your future is your choice. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken implications. What do you want, Professor? Snape finally asked. Harry considered his words carefully. How much could he say without revealing too much? I want you to understand what you'd be committing to, he finally said. The path Malfoy and his associates offer, it seems to promise power, recognition, belonging. Things everyone deserves. Snape watched him warily. But there's always a cost, Harry continued. Always something required in return. Have you considered what that might be? You speak as if from experience, Snape observed shrewdly. Harry met his gaze. Let's say I've seen where both paths lead. And what business is it of yours which I choose? None, Harry admitted. Except that I'd hate to see extraordinary potential wasted, or worse, corrupted. Snape's face remained impassive, but something shifted in his eyes. I'm offering an alternative, Harry said. Continue these advanced sessions with me. I can teach you defensive magic beyond the Hogwarts curriculum, magic that protects rather than destroys. And I won't ask for your soul in exchange. Protection isn't enough, Snape replied, voice barely above a whisper. Not in this world. No, Harry agreed, thinking of all that would come. But it's a foundation that doesn't rot beneath you. Snape gathered his books, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Is that all, Professor? Harry sighed. For now. Think about what I've said, Mr. Snape. My door remains open. After Snape left, Harry ran a hand through his hair in frustration. Was he making any difference? Or was he merely witnessing the inevitable unfolding of history? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Harry looked up to find Lily in the doorway. Miss Evans? Did you forget something? She entered hesitantly. I overheard. Not intentionally, she added quickly. I came back for my notebook and, well. Harry gestured for her to continue. You're trying to help him, she said. Severus. I try to help all my students, Harry replied neutrally. Lily shook her head. It's different with him. You see something in him that most professors don't. Harry considered his response carefully. I see someone with extraordinary gifts standing at a dangerous precipice. That's exactly it, Lily said, stepping closer. He's been sliding towards something dark for years, but no one else seems to notice or care. They either encourage it, like his Slytherin friends, or dismiss him entirely, like Mr. Potter and his friends. Harry suggested gently. Lily's cheeks colored. They don't help matters, certainly. You care about him still, Harry observed. Despite growing differences. He was my first friend in the magical world, Lily said quietly. He showed me I wasn't a freak, that my abilities were special. But lately. She trailed off. People change, Harry said. Sometimes together, sometimes apart. I don't want to give up on him, Lily admitted. But I don't know how to compete with what those Death Eater recruiters are offering. Harry's pulse quickened at her direct naming of Death Eaters. You know about that? I'm not stupid, she replied with a flash of the spirit Harry recognized from memories of her. Everyone knows Malfoy's working for you-know-who now. The way he looks at Muggleborns like me. Have you been threatened? Harry asked sharply. Not directly, Lily said. But the atmosphere is changing. Slurs in the hallways, hexes when professors aren't looking. Mostly from older Slytherins, but not exclusively. Harry nodded grimly. The First War's tensions were growing at Hogwarts just as they were in the wider wizarding world. Professor, Lily hesitated, then continued, do you think he can still choose differently? Severus, I mean. The question struck at the heart of Harry's dilemma. In his timeline, Snape had chosen the Death Eaters before switching sides only after Lily's death. Could that path be altered? I believe everyone can choose differently, Harry said carefully. Until they can't. That's not really an answer, Lily pointed out. Harry smiled slightly. No, it's not. The truth is, I don't know. But I think having someone believe in him might make a difference. I've tried, Lily said, frustration evident in her voice. For years I've tried. But he keeps choosing them, Mulciber, Avery, now Malfoy. Sometimes it takes a different voice, Harry suggested. Sometimes we can't hear the people closest to us because there's too much emotion involved. Lily considered this, absently twirling a strand of dark red hair around her finger, a gesture Harry had seen in photographs of his mother. I hope you're right, she said finally. For his sake. As she turned to leave, Harry was struck by a sudden impulse. Miss Evans? She paused. Yes, Professor. Your friendship mattered to him, Harry said. Whatever happens, know that you made a difference. Lily looked confused by his use of past tense but nodded. Thank you, Professor. After she left, Harry sank into his chair, overwhelmed by the weight of knowledge he carried. He was interfering, there was no question about that now. His conversation with Snape, his encouragement of Lily's concern, these weren't the actions of someone merely observing history. But perhaps that was the point. Perhaps he hadn't been sent back merely to witness the past but to influence it. The question remained, how much could he change before the future he knew disappeared entirely? And if it did, if his parents lived, if Voldemort was defeated differently, if Harry Potter was never the boy who lived, would that be so terrible? The paradoxes made his head ache. If he changed too much, he might erase his own existence. But if he did nothing, he was condemning people he loved to death. Harry stood, decision made. He would continue his cautious interventions, teaching defensive magic, offering alternatives to those at risk of joining Voldemort, building connections between houses through the dueling club. Small changes that might grow into something significant. And all the while, he would keep searching for a way home, wherever and whenever home might be when he was finished. Snow fell gently outside the windows as Harry supervised the final dueling club meeting of the term. Following the Marauders' suggestion, he had reorganized the upcoming tournament into mixed house teams, creating new dynamics and unexpected partnerships. Excellent disarming sequence, Mr. Pettigrew. Harry called as Peter successfully disarmed the Hufflepuff fourth year. 5 points to Gryffindor for that textbook execution. Peter beamed at the rare praise, standing a little straighter. Harry forced himself to smile encouragingly despite his complicated feelings toward the boy who would one day betray James and Lily. Over the past months, Harry had observed Peter closely, searching for signs of the traitor he would become. What he found instead was a desperately insecure boy hungry for acceptance and validation, someone easily overlooked in the shadow of his more talented friends. Harry had made a conscious effort to acknowledge Peter's achievements, not just the Marauders as a group. It was a small intervention, but perhaps enough to plant seeds of self-worth that might later counter Voldemort's temptations. Professor Evans. James approached, tournament roster in hand. We've finalized the team selections. Excellent, Mr. Potter. Harry reviewed the parchment. I see you've distributed talents evenly. That was Remus's idea, James admitted. Ensuring each team has different strengths. Harry nodded approvingly. Very strategic. And I notice you've paired with Mr. Snape on Team 3. James ran a hand through his perpetually messy hair, a gesture so familiar it made Harry's chest ache. Yeah, well, you said we should learn from different approaches. No one duels quite like Snape. This development had surprised Harry most of all. While James and Snape were far from friends, their open hostility had gradually transformed into grudging respect through the dueling club. They still avoided each other outside practice, but within this context, they maintained a fragile truce. I think you'll make formidable partners, Harry said truthfully. Between your transfiguration skills and his spell innovation, opposing teams will have their work cut out for them. James grinned. That's the plan. Plus, Evans is on our team too. Ah, Harry smiled knowingly. And that had nothing to do with your team selections. Pure coincidence, Professor, James insisted with exaggerated innocence. Completely random. Of course, Harry played along. Just as it's coincidence that Mr. Black ended up on a team with Miss Meadows, whom he's been attempting to impress for weeks. James laughed. You notice a lot, don't you? It's part of the job, Harry replied. Both teaching and, my previous work. James's expression turned curious. You know, you've never really said what you did before coming to Hogwarts. Haven't I? Harry deflected. How mysterious of me. There are theories, James informed him. Sirius thinks you were an unspeakable, something about the way you handle experimental magic. Remus suspects you were an aura, based on your combat reflexes. Peter's convinced you worked with magical creatures abroad because of those scars on your arms. Harry unconsciously touched his forearm where a Hungarian horntail had once left its mark. All interesting theories. Lily thinks you're running from something, James added more seriously. Or someone. Harry's smile faded. Miss Evans is perceptive. So which is it? James pressed. Perhaps a bit of each, Harry replied cryptically. Now, shall we continue with practice? The tournament is only 2 weeks away. James recognized the deflection but didn't push further. Yes, Professor. As James returned to his teammates, Harry watched him with a mixture of pride and melancholy. The boy was maturing, still mischievous and occasionally arrogant, but showing greater consideration for others and taking responsibility more seriously. Was it enough? Would these small changes in character survive the coming war? Would they make any difference to the ultimate outcome? Harry had no answers, only hope and continued determination to do what he could within the constraints of his impossible situation. The lesson continued for another hour before Harry dismissed the students for dinner. As they filed out, chattering excitedly about the upcoming tournament, Flitwick approached Harry with a concerned expression. A word, Professor Evans. Of course, Professor Flitwick, Harry replied, noting the unusual seriousness in the charms master's demeanor. Once they were alone, Flitwick spoke in a hushed tone. The headmaster asked me to inform you. There's been another attack, a Muggle family in Yorkshire. The father was a ministry employee in the Muggle Relations Office. Harry's stomach tightened. Death Eaters? They left the mark, Flitwick confirmed grimly. The Daily Prophet is reporting it as a gas explosion, but... He shook his head sadly. Are they increasing security at the castle? Harry asked, immediately thinking of his students, his parents, and their safety. Additional wards are being placed as we speak, Flitwick assured him. Albus thought you should know, given your particular interest in defensive preparations. Harry nodded, understanding the subtext. Dumbledore had clearly shared some version of Harry's special circumstances with select staff members. "Thank you for telling me," Harry said. "I'll increase the practical content in upcoming lessons. The students should be prepared. Within educational parameters, of course," Flitwick cautioned. Of course, Harry agreed, though they both knew the line between academic defense and combat training was becoming increasingly blurred as the war intensified. After Flitwick left, Harry remained in the empty classroom, staring out at the snow-covered grounds. The war was accelerating, matching the historical timeline he remembered. Soon, Voldemort's power would reach its first peak, bringing terror and death to the wizarding and muggle worlds alike. And somewhere out there, Horcruxes were being created. The thought sent a chill through Harry that had nothing to do with the December cold. Should he tell Dumbledore what he knew? The risks of changing the timeline were significant, but so was the potential to save countless lives. Perhaps there was a middle ground: hints, suggestions, careful guidance without revealing everything. Lost in these thoughts, Harry almost missed the soft footsteps approaching the classroom door. He turned, one sliding automatically into his hand, to find Severus Snape standing at the threshold. "Mr. Snape," Harry acknowledged, relaxing slightly. "Did you forget something?" Snape entered hesitantly, his thin face even paler than usual. "I need to speak with you." About what you offered before." Harry's attention sharpened immediately. "Of course. Please, close the door." Snape complied, then stood awkwardly in the center of the room, clearly struggling with whatever he'd come to say. "Take your time," Harry encouraged, gesturing to a chair. Snape remained standing. "I've been approached," he said finally, voice barely above a whisper. "Officially. Not just hints anymore." Harry's pulse quickened. "By Lucius Malfoy?" "No. Mulciber's father," Snape replied. "At Slughorn's Christmas gathering last weekend. He cornered me, said they've been watching my progress. Said I have potential they could develop." "I see," Harry kept his voice neutral despite his internal alarm. "And what did you tell him?" "That I was honored by the attention," Snape's voice held a trace of bitterness. "That I would consider the opportunity carefully." "But you're here," Harry observed quietly. Snape's dark eyes met his. "You said there was another path. That you could teach me magic that protects." "I did," Harry confirmed. "I meant it." "Why?" Snape demanded suddenly. "Why would you bother with me? What do you get from this?" The question caught Harry off guard. What could he say? That he was trying to prevent Snape from making mistakes that would haunt him for decades. That he was attempting to save Lily's life by keeping her childhood friend from the Death Eaters. "I see extraordinary potential being pulled in dangerous directions," Harry said finally. "I see someone trying to find belonging and recognition in places that will ultimately destroy everything you value." "You don't know what I value," Snape countered. "Don't I?" Harry raised an eyebrow. "You value knowledge, innovation, respect. You want acknowledgement of your abilities, a place where your talents are appreciated. And," he added carefully, "you value certain friendships, even when they become complicated." Snape's expression flickered at the last point. "If you're referring to Lily, I'm referring to choices," Harry interrupted gently. "The ones you've already made and the ones still before you." Silence fell between them, heavy with unspoken truths. "If I refuse them," Snape finally said, "they'll make me an enemy." "Yes," Harry acknowledged. "They will. My housemates, my associates. They'll turn against me. Most likely." "Then what exactly are you offering?" Snape demanded. "Protection. Against the most powerful dark wizard in a century and his followers." Harry considered his answer carefully. "I'm offering an alternative path. Additional training, connections to people who can help protect you, and something the Death Eaters can never give you, the freedom to choose your own future. Snape seemed to struggle with internal conflict, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. "I don't know if I can," he admitted, voice barely audible. "Taking the easier path doesn't make you weak, Mr. Snape," Harry said quietly. "It makes you human. The question is whether the easier path leads where you truly want to go." Snape stared out the window, his profile sharp against the fading light. "When I was 9 years old," he said unexpectedly, "I saw magic for the first time outside my home. Real, intentional magic, not my mother's furtive spellwork or my own accidental bursts." Harry remained silent, sensing the importance of this rare personal disclosure. "It was Lily," Snape continued. "She was making a flower bloom in her hand, over and over. She didn't know what she was doing, just that she could make beautiful things happen. That's when I knew magic could be more than what I'd seen at home, more than my father's fear and my mother's resentment." He turned back to Harry, something vulnerable in his expression. "I don't want magic that destroys. I never did. But sometimes it feels like that's all that's offered to someone like me." "It isn't," Harry said firmly. "I promise you that." Snape took a deep breath. "What do I need to do?" "For now, nothing obvious," Harry replied, mind racing through possibilities. "Continue as normal. Don't reject their approach outright, that would only put you in immediate danger. Tell them you're still considering, that you need time. And meanwhile?" "Meanwhile, we increase your private training," Harry said. "Not just defensive spells, but occlumency, the art of protecting your mind from invasion. Essential if you're to maintain any privacy around those circles." Snape's eyes widened with interest. "I've read about occlumency, but resources are limited in the student library." "For good reason," Harry noted. "It's complex, demanding magic. But I think you have the mental discipline required." "You know occlumency?" Snape asked, a new respect in his voice. "I had to learn," Harry said, thinking of his failed lessons with the older Snape. "Though I'm far from a master. However, I can teach you the fundamentals and connect you with more advanced instruction if you show aptitude." Snape nodded slowly. "When do we begin?" "After the holiday break," Harry decided. "Use this time to consider carefully what you want. This isn't a choice to make lightly, Mr. Snape." "I understand," Snape replied solemnly. As he turned to leave, Harry called after him, "One more thing, Mr. Snape." Snape paused at the door. "Whatever you decide," Harry said, "your value isn't determined by which group accepts you. Remember that." After Snape left, Harry sank into his chair, adrenaline draining away. Had he just altered the timeline significantly? Or was this conversation merely a temporary deviation, with Snape ultimately making the same choices as before? There was no way to know. All Harry could do was continue offering alternatives and hope that small changes might eventually lead to different outcomes. As snow continued to fall outside, Harry made a silent promise to both his students and his own past: he would do everything in his power to create a better future, even if that future might never include him. Chapter 3, Yesterday's Tomorrow. Harry woke up wrong. Not sick wrong. Not hangover wrong. Time wrong. His clock read 6:17 a.m., but the light through his window was afternoon gold. He sat up fast, grabbed his wand, and checked the castle's timekeeping spell. 6:17 a.m., January 13, 1977. Except it wasn't. The sun didn't lie. Harry pulled on clothes and boots, splashed water on his face, and headed for Dumbledore's office. The halls were empty. No students. No ghosts. Even the portraits looked frozen, like time had skipped and left them behind. "Acid pops," Harry told the gargoyle outside Dumbledore's office. It didn't move. "Chocolate frogs. Fizzing whiz-bees. Lemon drop. Nothing." Harry exhaled through his nose. "Fine. Be difficult. He put his hand on the stone and closed his eyes. Hogwarts had always recognized him, even when he shouldn't have belonged. It was in his blood, in his magic. He wasn't asking for control. Just access. The gargoyle shuddered, then slid aside. Harry took the spiral stairs 2 at a time. The door at the top opened before he knocked. Dumbledore stood there, looking grave. "Ah, Professor Evans. I was hoping you'd arrive." Harry stepped in. "Something's wrong with time." "Yes," Dumbledore agreed, moving to his desk where several delicate silver instruments whirred and clicked. "It appears we've experienced a temporal displacement." Harry's stomach sank. "How bad?" "The castle exists in 2 moments simultaneously," Dumbledore said, adjusting one of the instruments. "Our internal time says morning. The world outside insists it's late afternoon." "That's not possible," Harry said. Dumbledore smiled thinly. "Many things thought impossible have become rather commonplace lately." He looked up, blue eyes piercing. "Including time travelers appearing in my school." Harry didn't flinch. "This is connected to what happened at the lake. And during the tournament." "Indeed," Dumbledore agreed. "The question is whether it's a symptom or a cause." Harry moved closer to the desk. "Both, maybe. Someone's messing with time magic. Lucius Malfoy. Maybe others." Dumbledore steepled his fingers. "I believe we've reached the point where partial truths no longer serve us, Professor Evans. Or should I call you something else?" Harry's heart hammered. "Evans is fine." "Is it?" Dumbledore asked quietly. "You arrived with knowledge you shouldn't possess. You intervene in specific students' lives with remarkable focus. And now time itself bends around you." Harry took a breath. "I can't tell you everything." "No," Dumbledore agreed. "But perhaps you can tell me enough." Harry stared at the man who'd guided and manipulated his life, younger, less burdened, but with that same penetrating gaze. "I'm from 2001, Harry finally said. "I was born in 1980. I was an Auror. Something went wrong during a raid. An experimental time turner broke, and I ended up here." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "That explains some things. Though not your particular interest in certain students." Harry's jaw tightened. "I knew them. In my time." "I see," Dumbledore said softly. "And your intervention with young Mr. Potter on your first day?" "Was a mistake," Harry admitted. "But I couldn't just watch." "Because you knew him," Dumbledore pressed. "In your future." Harry looked away. "Yes." "How well?" The question hung in the air between them. Harry met Dumbledore's gaze. "I can't answer that." Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. "Very well. The present crisis takes precedence." He stood and crossed to Fawkes Perch, stroking the phoenix's brilliant feathers. "The temporal distortion appears centered on the lake. It's expanding. If it continues, the castle will become unstable." "Unstable how?" Harry asked. "Time will fracture," Dumbledore said simply. "Different parts of Hogwarts will exist in different moments. Eventually, the stress will collapse the wards entirely." Harry swore under his breath. "Indeed," Dumbledore agreed. "I've evacuated most students to Hogsmeade as a precaution. The staff is working to reinforce the boundaries." "Most students?" Harry caught the phrasing. Dumbledore's expression turned grave. "Several are missing. They appear to have gone toward the lake before the distortion intensified." Harry's blood went cold. "Who?" "Mr. Potter, Mr. Black, Sirius, that is, Mr. Lupin, and Mr. Pettigrew." "Of course. The Marauders. Anyone else?" Harry asked. "Miss Evans," Dumbledore said. "And Mr. Snape." Harry closed his eyes briefly. "When?" They were last seen at breakfast, Dumbledore replied. Shortly before the distortion began. Harry moved toward the door. I need to find them. Professor Evans, Dumbledore called after him. Whatever you know about these students' futures, it clouds your judgment. Harry paused. Yes. And yet you would risk yourself for them. Harry turned. Wouldn't you? Dumbledore's eyes softened. I simply wonder what they become, to inspire such devotion. Harry didn't answer. He couldn't. Instead, he said, I'm going to the lake. Not alone, Dumbledore insisted. Professor McGonagall is already searching the grounds. Meet her at the entrance hall. Harry nodded and left, mind racing. The Marauders and Lily, missing. Snape too. Near the lake, where time was breaking open. This wasn't coincidence. This was bait. McGonagall met him at the entrance, face tight with worry. Evans, she greeted him. Albus says you have insight into this situation. Some, Harry admitted. Not enough. They stepped outside into the bizarre dual light, morning mist still clinging to the ground while afternoon sun hung overhead. The missing students, McGonagall said as they strode toward the lake. They're important to you. It wasn't a question. Harry glanced at her. They're important to history. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give, Harry replied. McGonagall's lips pressed into a thin line. Very well. But I warn you, Evans, if your secrets endanger my students, I will hold you personally responsible. Fair, Harry agreed. They walked in tense silence until they reached the path to the lake. There, McGonagall stopped abruptly. Look, she pointed. On the ground, footprints appeared and disappeared, like the people making them were phasing in and out of existence. Harry crouched to examine them. 6 sets. Going toward the lake. And none returning, McGonagall noted grimly. Harry stood. We need to move faster. They quickened their pace, wands drawn. As they approached the lake, the air thickened, like walking through invisible cobwebs. Then Harry saw it. The boathouse was wrong. It existed in 2 states at once, intact in one moment, partially destroyed in another. The images overlapped, ghostly and unstable. And standing at the water's edge were 6 figures. No, 7. The Marauders stood in a loose semicircle, wands out but not casting. Lily and Snape stood slightly apart, backs to each other, clearly defensive. And facing them all was Lucius Malfoy. Harry and McGonagall approached cautiously, the temporal distortion making movement difficult, like wading through syrup. Simple transaction, Lucius was saying, voice oddly distorted. You help me complete the circle, and I ensure your futures are favorable. We're not helping you do anything, James shot back. Whatever you're messing with, it's wrong. Even I can feel that. Arrogant boy, Lucius sneered. You have no comprehension of what's at stake. Sirius laughed harshly. Big talk from a man who needs school kids to do his dirty work. Harry moved closer, careful to stay hidden behind a partial wall. Lucius held something in his hand, a small golden device that pulsed with familiar energy. A time turner. But not like any Harry had seen before. This one was cruder, experimental, with additional dials and visible magic swirling inside. This isn't about you, Lucius continued smoothly. It's about him. He pointed toward the castle. Your mysterious professor. The man from nowhere. Lily's voice cut in. Professor Evans has nothing to do with this. Oh, but he does, Miss Evans, Lucius smiled coldly. He's the anomaly. The fracture point. Something brought him here, and that same something is trying to correct the mistake. Harry's blood ran cold. Brought him here? Not the broken time turner. You're insane, Remus said flatly. We're leaving. No, Lucius raised his wand. You're staying. All of you. The binding requires blood of those connected to the anomaly. And all of you, his gaze swept over the students, have become quite connected to Professor Evans, haven't you? Harry had heard enough. He stepped out, wand raised. Let them go, Malfoy. Lucius turned, unsurprised. Ah, the man himself. Right on schedule. McGonagall emerged beside Harry, her wand aimed steadily at Lucius. Release my students immediately, Mr. Malfoy. Lucius ignored her, eyes fixed on Harry. You don't belong here. Surely you've realized that by now. Neither does that, Harry nodded toward the time turner. Where did you get it? Lucius smiled thinly. From someone very interested in understanding how time can be rewritten. Voldemort, Harry said flatly. Several students flinched at the name. Lucius merely raised an eyebrow. The Dark Lord understands the value of temporal advantage, he replied. When a man appeared from nowhere, displaying knowledge he shouldn't possess, naturally we became curious. Harry stepped closer, positioning himself between Lucius and the students. This isn't just curiosity. You're trying to open something. Open. Lucius laughed softly. No, Professor. I'm trying to close the rupture you created. Unfortunately, that might mean closing you with it. Harry's eyes narrowed. You're lying. Am I? Lucius gestured toward the lake, where the water now rippled unnaturally, showing glimpses of other times, past, future, sideways moments that never happened. This began with your arrival. It will end with your departure. Harry felt McGonagall stiffen beside him. Evans, she murmured. The water. Harry looked. The lake's surface wasn't just rippling, it was rising. A column of water stood upright, human-shaped but wrong, like the figure they'd glimpsed before. Lucius smiled. Right on time. Everyone back, Harry ordered sharply. Professor McGonagall, get the students away from the water. We're not leaving, James protested. Yes, you are, Harry snapped. But it was too late. The water column surged forward, splitting into multiple tendrils that wrapped around the students' ankles, rooting them in place. They struggled, trying to cast spells that fizzled at the tips of their wands. What is this? Lily demanded, fear edging her voice. Temporal binding, Lucius explained calmly. The entity requires anchors. Entity. McGonagall's voice was sharp. Harry understood suddenly. It's not Voldemort experimenting with time. It's something using him. Using you. Lucius's smile faltered slightly. The Dark Lord controls the power. No one controls time, Harry said flatly. You're being used, Malfoy. The water column solidified, taking a more definite shape, humanoid but wrong, with two long limbs and a face that kept shifting between different expressions, different ages. When it spoke, its voice echoed as if coming from multiple moments at once. Anomaly. It was looking at Harry. What is that thing? Sirius demanded, still struggling against the water binding his feet. A consequence, Harry replied grimly, raising his wand. Incendio. Fire erupted from his wand, striking the water entity, which simply absorbed the spell, growing larger. Lucius laughed. Conventional magic won't work, Evans. This is beyond spells. The entity moved closer to Harry, water dripping from its form but never diminishing. You do not belong, it intoned. Correction required. Harry backed up, mind racing. If fire didn't work, maybe, Glacius, he shouted. The freezing charm hit the entity, momentarily slowing it as ice crystals formed along its surface. Get them out. Harry yelled to McGonagall. The binding is weaker when it's distracted. McGonagall moved quickly, casting counter curses at the water tendrils. Snape, surprisingly, joined her efforts, his precise wand work helping to free Lily first. "Potter, help Lupin," McGonagall ordered. Black, Pettigrew, moved toward the path. The students scrambled, Lily pulling free first, then Remus with James's help. Sirius and Peter struggled longer, the water seemingly reluctant to release them. Lucius moved to intercept, but Harry blocked him, wand aimed directly at his chest. "Don't," Harry warned. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," Lucius hissed. "Actually, I think I do," Harry replied. "You found something while searching for time magic. Something that promised Voldemort power over history itself. But it's using you." Lucius's eyes flashed. "The Dark Lord cannot be used." "He already is," Harry said. "And so are you." The entity broke free of the ice, reforming larger than before. It reached for Harry with elongated fingers. "Correction," it repeated. "Return." Harry dodged, firing another spell, this time a containment charm that briefly warped the air around the entity. Snape had freed himself and was helping Sirius break loose, their mutual animosity temporarily suspended in the face of greater danger. "Evans!" McGonagall called. "We need to retreat." Harry nodded. "Get them to the castle. I'll hold it off." "Not alone," James protested, moving back toward Harry. "Go!" Harry ordered. "All of you." But the entity moved faster than expected, flowing around Harry to block the students' escape path. New tendrils shot out, wrapping around James and Lily specifically. Harry's heart stopped. "No," he shouted, charging forward. The entity's voice echoed. "These two. Connected. Core paradox." Lucius looked confused for the first time. "What is it doing?" "This wasn't the plan." "There never was a plan," Harry snarled, slashing his wand in complex patterns. "Not one you controlled." Harry's spell hit the tendrils holding James and Lily, temporarily severing them. "Run," he shouted. They hesitated, just for a moment, long enough for the entity to reform its grip, stronger this time. "Potter and Evans," it intoned. "Source point." Harry felt a chill that had nothing to do with the January air. It knew. It knew who they were, who they would be, to him. "Let them go," Harry demanded, wand steady. "It's me you want." "What is it talking about?" Lily asked, struggling against the watery bonds. "Why us?" "Yes, why them?" Lucius echoed, looking increasingly uncertain. "The ritual requires the anomaly, not students." The entity's shifting face turned toward Lucius. "Failure. Tool no longer required." A tendril shot toward Lucius, faster than he could react. It wrapped around his throat, lifting him off his feet. "Wait!" Harry shouted. "Stop!" Despite everything Lucius had done, Harry couldn't just watch him die. The entity paused, its face turning back to Harry. "Exchange offered." Harry understood. It wanted a deal. "Let them all go," he said firmly. "Malfoy, the students, everyone. Then you can have me." "Evans, no." McGonagall protested. The entity seemed to consider. "Insufficient. Correction requires source points." It tightened its grip on James and Lily. "These two. Plus anomaly." "No deal," Harry said immediately. "Just me." The entity's watery form rippled with what might have been anger. Non-negotiable. Harry's mind raced. He had to get James and Lily free. They had to survive, not just for his existence, but for the future of the wizarding world. Then a new voice cut through the standoff. "What about a different exchange?" Severus Snape stepped forward, wand lowered but ready. The entity's attention shifted. "Explain." "You need source points," Snape said carefully. "Connections to the anomaly." They don't have to be those two specifically. Harry stared at him. Snape, don't, be quiet, Snape hissed. Then to the entity, I'm connected to him too. He's changed my path. Take me instead of them. The entity seemed to study Snape, its watery form rippling thoughtfully. Insufficient alone. Then take me too, Sirius stepped forward, jaw set. I'm just as connected. And me, Remus added, joining him. Peter hesitated, then nodded jerkily. Me too. No, Harry said firmly. None of you are sacrificing yourselves. Interesting, the entity mused. Multiple connections. Multiple corrections. It released Lucius, who fell gasping to the ground, then retracted the tendrils from James and Lily, though it kept them surrounded. Choice offered, it declared. Anomaly returns willingly with one connection, or remains with all connections severed. Harry's blood ran cold. Severed how? The entity's face shifted into something almost smiling. Permanent removal from timeline. It meant death. Either Harry went back to his time with one person, erasing them from history, or he stayed and they all died. There has to be another way, Harry insisted. The entity's form rippled impatiently. No other way. Timeline fracturing. Requires resolution. Harry looked at the students, at his parents, his godfather, his mentor, his friends, and his former enemy, all willing to risk themselves for him. For a man they barely knew. McGonagall stepped forward. Take me. I'm the deputy headmistress. My connection to the school and to Evans is significant. No, Harry said immediately. It's not your choice, McGonagall replied sharply. The entity considered. Insufficient connection. Emotional bonds required. Harry suddenly understood what it wanted, not just connections, but meaningful ones. Bonds that had already altered the timeline. His eyes met Snape's. Of everyone here, Snape's path had been most directly altered by Harry's presence. The boy was already making different choices, turning away from the Death Eaters, learning acclimacy. Snape seemed to realize this at the same moment. It wants me, he said quietly. No, Lily protested immediately. Sev, don't. It makes the most sense, Snape replied, not looking at her. Evans has interfered with my future most directly. The entity rippled with what seemed like agreement. Acceptable exchange. I don't accept it, Harry said firmly. There has to be another solution. Lucius, recovered enough to stand, laughed bitterly. There isn't, Evans. The temporal tear must be sealed. Someone must pay the price. And you're fine with that being a student? Harry demanded. Lucius didn't answer, which was answer enough. Harry turned back to the entity. If someone must go, it should be me alone. I'm the anomaly. Insufficient, the entity repeated. Balance requires exchange. Lily moved closer to Snape, her face determined. What if we find another way to balance it? Not by taking a person, but by... I don't know, giving something else. The entity tilted its fluid head. Explain. Magic always has equivalents, Lily pressed. Different currencies of exchange. If you need balance, what about memories? Knowledge? Something besides a life? Harry stared at her in amazement. Even as a teenager, his mother was brilliant. The entity seemed to consider this. Memories. Insufficient alone. Knowledge. Potentially valuable. Harry stepped forward. What about knowledge of the future? I have that. I know what happens, to all of them, to the wizarding world, to the war. The entity's form rippled with interest. Future knowledge. Significant value. If I give you that, Harry proposed, would you accept it instead of taking someone with me? Partial exchange possible, the entity conceded. Knowledge plus minor connection. What does that mean? Remus asked cautiously. It means, Harry translated grimly, it still wants someone, but maybe not their entire existence. The entity's watery hand reached toward Harry. Show knowledge. Harry hesitated, then raised his wand to his temple, drawing out a silvery strand of memory, not everything, but enough. Key moments from the First Wizarding War, Voldemort's fall, his parents' deaths, Pettigrew's betrayal, Snape's true allegiance. The memory strand floated toward the entity, which absorbed it into its fluid form. For several moments, the entity was still, processing what it had seen. When it spoke again, its voice had changed, less echoing, more focused. Acceptable. Alternative exchange identified. What is it? Harry asked cautiously. Blood bond from all connections. Small sacrifice, permanent link. Harry frowned. Blood magic? Not dark, McGonagall said quietly. Ancient. Foundational. What would it do to them? Harry demanded of the entity. Minor change. Shared dreams. Temporal awareness. Nothing more. Harry looked at the students. It's asking for a blood bond from all of you. It would connect us permanently, but you'd survive intact. Shared dreams? Sirius repeated skeptically. With you? Not consistently, Harry guessed. Just, echoes, maybe. I'll do it, James said immediately. Lily hesitated, then nodded. Me too. One by one, the others agreed, Remus, Sirius, even Peter after a moment's hesitation. Snape was last, his dark eyes unreadable. Finally, he gave a curt nod. How do we do this? Harry asked the entity. It gestured toward the lake's edge. Circle. Blood on water. Speak binding. They moved to the shoreline, forming a loose circle. The entity produced a small silver blade from its fluid form, offering it to Harry. Harry took it cautiously, then sliced his palm first, letting several drops fall into the lake. The water glowed briefly where his blood touched it. He passed the knife to James, who did the same without hesitation, then to Lily, who winced but made her cut cleanly. Around the circle it went, Sirius, Remus, Peter, and finally Snape, who stared at his bleeding palm with an unreadable expression before letting his blood join the others. The entity directed them to join hands, their blood mingling. Harry found himself between James and Lily, their warm hands in his, creating a connection that resonated with his very being. These were his parents, young, brave, alive, their blood literally mixing with his in a ritual that would bind them across time. The entity began to speak, its voice taking on a rhythmic quality. By blood and choice, by time and voice, what was broken now rebound. The wanderer returns to rightful place, while echoes here remain. The lake water began to glow brighter, rising up to encircle them all in a glimmering curtain of light and liquid. Speak your true name, Anomaly, the entity commanded. Harry hesitated only a moment. Harry James Potter. He heard gasps from the circle, felt James's hand tighten on his. Son of James Potter and Lily Evans, Harry continued, the truth finally spoken aloud. Born July 31, 1980. The water curtain pulsed brighter, spinning faster. Binding accepted, the entity declared. Return pathway opening. The water began to contract, focusing around Harry specifically. He could feel it pulling at him, not just physically but temporally, like hooks in his very timeline tugging him forward. Wait, he said urgently. I need a moment. The entity paused, the water slowing slightly. Harry turned first to Snape, whose face was frozen in shock at the revelation. Your choices matter, Harry told him fiercely. All of them. Remember that. Snape stared at him, then gave a single, sharp nod. Harry turned to Peter next. Loyalty isn't about fear. It's about courage. Find yours. Peter looked confused, but nodded uncertainly. To Remus and Sirius together, trust each other. Always. No matter what. They exchanged glances, then looked back at Harry with determination. Finally, Harry faced his parents. James looked stunned, his eyes moving rapidly between Harry and Lily. Lily simply stared at Harry, understanding dawning in her identical green eyes. "You're our..." James couldn't finish the sentence. "Yes," Harry said simply. "That's why you punched him," Lily realized. "That day by the lake." Harry managed a small smile. "Not my finest moment." "Our son," James murmured, wonder in his voice. "We have a son." Harry's throat tightened. "You will." "Do we?" Lily hesitated. "Are we good parents?" Harry's heart broke a little. "The best," he said firmly. "You give everything for me." Something in his tone must have revealed too much, because both their expressions changed, understanding flickering in their eyes. "Oh," Lily said softly. "It's okay," Harry told them, though it wasn't, it never had been. "What you do matters. It saves everyone." James straightened, his hand still gripping Harry's. "Then we'll do it. Whatever it is." "I know," Harry said, and he couldn't keep the pride from his voice. The entity's patience ended. Time expiring. Return now. The water curtain contracted further, surrounding Harry alone now. "Wait," Lily called, stepping forward. "Will we remember? After you're gone?" The entity considered. "Echoes only. Dreams. Impressions. Full memory would disrupt timeline. But we'll know something." James pressed. "Enough to choose. Not enough to change." Harry felt the pull strengthen. "I have to go." "Professor," Harry, Snape said suddenly, stepping forward. In your time, did I make the right choice?" Harry looked at the boy who would become both villain and hero in his life. "Eventually," he said honestly. "And it mattered more than you'll ever know." Snape's expression was unreadable, but he stepped back, seemingly satisfied. The water closed around Harry completely now, cutting him off from their voices. He could see them through the shimmering barrier, McGonagall with her wand still raised protectively, the Marauders clustered together, Lily reaching toward the barrier, Snape standing apart but watching intently. And beyond them, Lucius Malfoy, his face a mask of frustrated calculation as he realized his plan had failed. The entity's voice surrounded Harry, coming from the water itself, "Return journey beginning. Prepare." Harry felt the same sensation he'd experienced when the time turner broke: compression, stretching, dissolution. But this time it felt controlled, directed. He caught one last glimpse of his parents' faces, young, determined, alive, before the water collapsed inward, taking him with it. Time splintered around him, and Harry Potter fell through history toward home. Harry woke in St. Mungo's with a splitting headache and the distinct feeling he'd been hit by the night bus. "He's awake." Ron's voice came from nearby. "Hermione. He's awake." Harry blinked groggily, the world slowly coming into focus. Ron Weasley leaned over him, face lined with worry that immediately transformed into relief. "'Bout bloody time, mate," Ron said, grinning. 3 days you've been out." 3 days. Harry croaked, his throat dry. Hermione appeared, pressing a cup of water to his lips. "Drink this." Slowly. Harry obeyed, the cool water reviving him somewhat. As his mind cleared, memories rushed back: the raid, the broken time turner, 1976, his parents, the entity, the blood ritual. "What happened?" he asked, struggling to sit up. "The raid, successful," Hermione assured him. "You took down the leader right before that experimental time turner exploded. The blast knocked you unconscious." Harry frowned. "That wasn't right. I went back to 1976. I was there for months. Ron and Hermione exchanged concerned glances. "Harry," Hermione said gently, "you've been here since the raid. You never went anywhere." "No," Harry insisted. "I was at Hogwarts. I taught defense. I met my parents." "The healers said you might have vivid dreams," Ron said uncertainly. "Time magic can mess with your head even when it works properly." Harry looked between his friends, frustration building. It hadn't been a dream. It was too detailed, too real. "I punched my dad," he insisted. "I taught Snape a clemency. I helped McGonagall with something in the lake." Hermione placed a calming hand on his arm. "Harry, it's okay. Whatever you experienced felt real to you. But physically, you've been here the whole time." Harry fell back against the pillows, confusion and disappointment washing over him. Had it all been a hallucination? Some bizarre side effect of the broken time-turner? "The other Death Eaters," he asked finally. "Did we get them all?" "All but one," Ron confirmed. "Rookwood got away, but we'll find him." Harry nodded, trying to reorient himself to this reality, his present, his life. A healer entered, smiling when she saw Harry awake. "Ah, Mr. Potter. Welcome back." She ran her wand over him in diagnostic patterns, nodding with satisfaction. "Everything looks good. That was quite a magical shock you absorbed. When can I go home?" Harry asked. "Tomorrow, if your condition remains stable," she replied. "Though I recommend desk duty for at least a week." After she left, Ron stood. "I should tell Kingsley you're awake. He's been asking for updates every few hours." Once Ron was gone, Hermione moved closer to Harry's bed, her expression thoughtful. "What?" Harry asked. "This experience you had," she said carefully. "Meeting your parents. Was it good?" Harry considered. "Complicated. They were so young. Just kids, really." Hermione nodded. "Even if it wasn't real in the conventional sense, maybe it was valuable." "How?" Harry asked. "You've never really known them," she said gently. "Maybe your mind gave you what you needed, a chance to see them as real people, not just idealized figures." Harry thought about James's arrogance and courage, Lily's brilliance and compassion, the glimpses of the people they were becoming. "Maybe," he conceded. Hermione squeezed his hand. "Get some rest. I'll be back in the morning to help with discharge." After she left, Harry lay in the quiet hospital room, sorting through his memories of 1976. They remained crystal clear, unlike typical dreams that faded upon waking. He remembered teaching the dueling club, his conversations with Snape, the feel of his mother's hand in his during the blood ritual. Something on his bedside table caught his eye, a small envelope he hadn't noticed before. Harry reached for it, wincing as his stiff muscles protested. The envelope was old, yellowed with age, sealed with wax that had cracked long ago. On the front, in familiar handwriting, was his name. Harry opened it carefully, pulling out a single sheet of parchment. The letter was brief: "Harry, the dreams come sometimes, even now." Echoes, just as it said. "Lily dreams more clearly than I do, something about her eyes matching yours," she says. "We don't know what happens to us. That much was kept from our memories. But we know you, somehow. And we know you're worth whatever comes. Make good choices, son. We're trying to do the same." J.P. October 1981. Harry's hands trembled. The letter was dated just days before his parents' deaths. It had been real. All of it. He had gone back. He had met them. And somehow, impossibly, they had remembered, not everything, but enough. Enough to leave him this message, knowing he would one day need it. Harry carefully folded the letter and held it to his chest, tears burning his eyes. They had known. They had chosen. They had faced their fate with open eyes. It didn't make their loss easier, but it changed something inside Harry, a knot of grief and guilt that had always been there loosened slightly. He closed his eyes, exhaustion claiming him once more. As he drifted toward sleep, he thought he felt the faintest impression of his mother's hand in his, a ghost of that blood bond formed across time. And for the first time in years, Harry dreamed not of what he had lost, but of what he had found. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.